We'll take you through today's 7-game slate. A lot of exciting options in front of you. A lot of late changing, weird starting lineups that you're going to need some help parsing through. I'm Chris Spags, joined by the genius, the man whose brain you're going to want on this night of all nights. Fast Eddie Fear. Eddie, how are you?
I'm very well. And yourself?
Good. I'm feeling a little, I mentioned this Eddie before we came on the air. I feel kind of dog shitty right now. I got like a flu or something where I haven't been sleeping the last 2 days, but being around Eddie is all I need to heal myself. Some good NBA picks are the best medicine, I think.
That's sweet. Yeah, let's keep it rolling. Had some good guys the last couple of days. Let's see what we can do with these really, really weird ass. Like the Knicks finally came out with a lineup, which I just redid the projections. I was off by one guy with what I thought they would actually do, but I am uploading those now, so those should be available in about 30 seconds.
There you go. And make sure before we even start talking, throw us a like on this video. The likes help us out a lot. They bump us up the YouTube algorithms. They get more exposure to the things that we talk about, which are very helpful. Lots of quality content. So throw us a like right now. See that little thumbs up. We appreciate it. What are you doing for value up front, Eddie? There's a lot of very cheap guys who are starting, some of which are bad, some of which will be good. Who are you going with?
Yeah, give me 30 seconds. I want to actually upload these without having to wait another...
Sure.
Whatever.
I'll start it off. Dotson being in the starting lineup, I think is going to make him much too chalky, but I already have a ton of Dotson. And I know you weren't on him the other day. I didn't have enough of him, but give that guy a full run of minutes and a blowout. I think he's going to be in a sweet spot. He's a guy I find hard to avoid tonight.
Yeah, I can't differ with you as far as that analysis goes. Moving into the starting lineup is nice. Again, it was mostly a minutes question more than anything else for me. Now, it could go ass sideways when you're looking what the Knicks are going to do here. There's a real chance that they put him in the starting lineup, and I think the likelihood is they get their shit pushed in by the Warriors. So, you know, I can certainly see a couple ways this goes badly, and in theory, because he started, he now doesn't get blowout run. Now, I don't think that's likely. I think there's a chance they keep it close, and I think even if they don't keep it close, he's likely getting his run first, third, and he's probably out there even if they're down 30 in the fourth quarter. But it adds a little bit of uncertainty, and it increases what we can expect the ownership to be. So, you know, some hesitance in that situation I don't think is an incredibly unreasonable idea. But, yeah, I mean, looking at this Knicks lineup is really interesting, and then looking at the value in general. Give me about to finally hit the upload button here. Boom. Rankings.
Yeah, Vonleh too, a little interesting. I mean,
yeah,
I don't.
Vonleh is probably my favorite here because he's just been like a really impressive points per minute kind of beast. He's a little cheaper. He's like 4,000 and 4,100. He's going to be lower owned than Dotson because he hasn't randomly spiked those super upside games. He's at a position where it's a little harder to find that kind of exceptional value. He makes a really nice FanDuel punt at that price. So Vonleh's certainly the guy to whom I am most inclined to pivot immediately. I think when you talk about value, there's it ends up being site dependent as it always does. But I see a lot of studs and duds lineups. I mean, this is part of me wants to say, you know, bravo to Fizdale, because this is something that you just generally don't see done. I mean, this is a radical departure. Like, he is throwing Burke on the bench and Cantor on the bench, who's been great, and said, look, I think if we run our normal team out here, we get demolished. So let's see what happens if we try this more defensive thing. Now, I still imagine they get absolutely crushed, and now you're dealing with a team that doesn't have as much of an identity playing with each other, and certainly the predominant likelihood is this goes horribly awry, but I can't wait to watch it. It's going to be like a train wreck where one of the cars, or it's a car wreck where one of the cars was filled with slinkies and another one was filled with fireworks and another one was filled with clowns, and it's just like, I'm really curious to see exactly how this is going to blow up and be terrible. Trying to get, you're frozen again apparently, and I can't quite figure out why, so I'm trying to defreeze you. I'm trying to thaw you.
Oh, we had so many good shows without me freezing. We were doing well.
Yeah, we had several in a row. I don't come back. Stay away from the lights, Bags. You're
classic Friday show. Me freezing up.
I could restart it. This time you're in a more sort of pensive, you know, sort of like you look like you're taking a little nap on us. which I don't.
Look, I said I was under the weather. That I might have just fallen asleep, and I might not be aware of it.
That's a real possibility. I hadn't considered that.
I moved on to the afterlife.
You are
We've gone.
an impressive somnambulist who is not only staying on the show but also giving takes during the show. So yeah, they're going to start Ntilikina at the 1. I don't love it. He's playable in tournaments, but you're looking at defensive stats, and this isn't necessarily a game to pick that up in. He's not a guy who I'm sure gets all the minutes in the event of a blowout. You can play him, but I'm not really willing to jump up and down there. I have more interest now in Tim Hardaway Jr. at the point because they are running out a couple more offensively challenged guys out there. Like Noah Vonleh and Mitchell Robinson are not going to be creating a ton of offense. So, nor is Frank Ntilikina. Those are 3... offensively challenged players. So it's just tournaments, but you could get Tim Hardaway Jr. taking 30 shots in 30 minutes, and I really wouldn't be shocked. He's running out there with several guys who are not what I will loosely refer to as offensively valuable players.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, somebody's got to distribute the ball. Burke, I feel bad for because he's actually having his most efficient year ever, and he just cannot get a break.
Yeah. So news coming in here. Fred VanVleet is out. So they are Sans VanVleet, Sans Delon Wright, Sans OG Anunoby. I have a massive amount of interest in Jonas Valanciunas.
I actually agree with you there. He's been really good versus DeAndre in the past.
He has been very good against DeAndre in the past. It's the kind of matchup in which they are supposed to run him out there extra minutes, and most importantly, when you get Anunoby out of there, you have to spend more time with Ibaka at the 4. He's got to back up Pascal as well as Jonas. Now, they can do their small bullshit. You can get CJ Miles, as they've run as high as the 4 before, but that's really hard for them because they're missing all the backup points. So I'm really kind of curious exactly how they're gonna make this work for that team. But now you're telling me I'm going to get something like, I don't know, 26, 28, 30 minutes out of Jonas Valanciunas, who has been absolutely, crushing souls in his limited time. So far this year he's got, his initial game against Boston was horrible. It's Boston. He played 14 minutes and had 9 fantasy points. But the 3 games since then, 19 minutes, 27.75 fantasy points. That's a point and a half a minute. 20 minutes, 42 fantasy points. That's 2.1 points per minute. And 20 minutes, 30.75 fantasy points. That's more than a point and a half a minute. I'm pretty excited against a Dallas team that I don't expect to be a defensive stalwart of getting anywhere near that at his price. Pretty massive fan there.
Yeah, I agree there. Let's talk about another guy real fast before we go game by game. Excited to have a ton of ownership. Our ownership is really concentrated today, and I think there might be an update which will be helpful coming through in the next hour.
Yeah, we're going to need one with all the weird shit going on here.
Yeah, but Jabari Parker is still expected to have a fair amount of ownership. He's not in the starting lineup. It is Chandler Hutchinson instead. What are you doing about that situation?
Yeah, I think there's other places in general I would rather spend my money. I don't have, an issue if someone wants to play Jabari Parker. Again, these teams just played a couple days ago. I think we can expect Jabari Parker's role to be fairly similar. I think Portis played a little under 20 minutes in that game before leaving. And, Jabari Parker played, I think, almost 31 minutes in that game and had a little less than 31 fantasy points. That wouldn't shock me here. I can see that number coming up. I certainly have no issue with you playing Jabari Parker, especially in tournaments. I do think there is an upside there, but there's a couple decent hands on Charlotte defending him at that position and is going to be fairly popular. So, I still prefer Bud Carter at 4,300. I would kind of prefer Levine a little bit. Obviously, different price, different position, different category in every way, but that's how I see the game going. I'd rather spend 4,600 on DK, probably on Cameron Payne, who I don't think is as popular as he should be, and obviously had sort of a coming out game in that matchup, and so we know the upside is there. So no issue with anyone playing Jabari Parker, but I wouldn't say that I am as on him as other people have seemed to be.
Here's an interesting question, I guess, also before we go game by game, because there are some studs here that's very relevant. I think New Orleans in particular, from Jason in the premium Slack. How often do you guys pivot from a stud to one of their teammates to save salary? Is it only matchup dependent? How would you approach that, especially, I guess, for the Pelicans?
Well, that's pretty vague. So if you're talking about, tonight, and you want to play, and you're not going to play Anthony Davis, I do think that makes Mirotic or Julius Randle a stronger play in general. Again, there's both positive and negative correlations with both of those plays, but I think a slightly more obvious one is turning Giannis into Chris Middleton. Like, I like Chris Middleton a lot. He's been performing well. He's still a little too cheap for what he should be. He's not super underpriced guy, but he's underpriced. And the bigger his game has a real negative correlation with Giannis. Certainly doesn't kill Giannis, obviously. Giannis is going to grab 15, 20 rebounds, etc. But, that's a good example of moving away. So, yeah, in general, the one play does increase the other. Middleton becomes better if you're not playing Giannis by extension. And Mirotic becomes better if you're not playing Anthony Davis. I do think those things are true. When you're looking at, Elfrid Payton, there's probably more positive than negative correlation with Anthony Davis. So moving away from, Brow wouldn't change my opinion a lot, but would even maybe change it a little bit negatively as far as playing Elf, who is still, by the way, underpriced. 6,700, we're getting there, but I've been saying this for a couple weeks. He'll stabilize. He'll get 7-3, 7-4. He'll spend most of the season there on DK if the team stays largely consistent. But someone, a value up top, Danny Green is still 4,200 on DK. That's too cheap. And again, no OG Anunoby, no Delon Wright, no Fred VanVleet. There's now minutes floating around. Like, Lorenzo Brown is almost in play because someone's got to play backup point guard on this team at some point. Don't play Lorenzo Brown, but he's like one more guy being out from being very much in play. Ibaka, who's been very good this season, is more in play just based on the fact that his minutes have to come up as well. Pascal probably picks up a couple extra minutes here. So all those guys very much in play on that team. Again, I mentioned I like Vonleh a lot. Someone asked what I thought about Mitchell Robinson on FanDuel as a punt. Yeah, there are not any centers that I think qualify as must plays. I'm a pretty big fan of Jonas Valanciunas, even on FanDuel where he's 58, 59, whatever it is, but he's not a must play. And, Mitchell Robinson has all the upside downside in the world. Him fouling out in 9 minutes does not shock me. Him scoring 37 fantasy points in 22 minutes doesn't shock me. He's a real big steals block guy, absolute athletic freak. Back-to-backs is just in many ways, a better version of Damian Jones. So you could see certainly an interesting game. So I don't have a problem basically just tournaments. Although, in FanDuel, I'm pretty sure he's the best minimum price center punt that you're going to get at this point. So I'd have no issue whatsoever with you running that. Beyond those guys for value, I'm trying to think of, I didn't have time to populate my value list today, so I got to handle it on a case-by-case basis, but Mitchell Robinson and Noah Vonleh and Danny Green and Damian Dotson on DK are 3.1, 4.1, 4.2, and 4.2. Those are all pretty strong value plays with what we're looking at. Again, there's some things that affect them, but studs and duds with those monsters in there certainly work.
Let's go game by game so we get the main gist of your feelings on all these different ones. We talked a little bit about Jabari, but let's talk about Chicago and Charlotte. Again, Jabari has the potential to be one of the highest owned guys on the slate. Kind of depends how people react to him being on the bench. But what are you thinking about both these sides of this matchup that they just played a couple days ago?
Yeah, so unsurprisingly, no one was amazing outside of Kemba. Again, Kemba had the lowest usage in this game of almost any game he played this year. He only took 14 shots. Batum actually took 15 shots. For all the comments that Batum can't shoot the ball, these two teams played a few days ago. Batum took the most shots on the team, not Kemba. I don't think that recurs. I don't think anything in this matchup particularly drives us this way. I just think... now, Batum was only 1 of 6 from 3 in that game and was 6 of 15 from the field, and Kemba was 5 of 14 from the field, and they managed to lose this game. I'd be pretty surprised if they lost the game tonight. So Kemba's still a little too cheap for what we're seeing out of him at 85 and 82, I believe, on the two main sites. You can play him in cash, you can play him in tournaments. I have no issue with that. His ownership is going to be held down by big chunks of Chris Paul and John Wall, and, there's... point guard's pretty deep, so I'm a fan of Kemba Walker in anything. Beyond that, you're looking at Batum in tournaments, DK only. Marvin Williams in tournaments you could do. I think he's 4,400. Cody Zeller you could do in a tournament, but beyond that, I guess MKG you can play in a tournament again. You can think that there's going to be a blowout, and then you play like $3,700 Willie Hernangomez if you want to play the bench guys in this game. That works, but Kemba. Thus far this year, looks like he's going to be the most usable and frequently the only usable guy on Charlotte, so there's not a ton to add there. Chicago's a little more interesting for me. Wendell Carter Jr. is still underpriced at $4,300. This is not a terribly difficult matchup. Does look sort of uncoordinated and lost out there, but last game was really pretty depressing and bad, and he still ended up with 21 and a quarter on DK and 22.4 on FanDuel, I think, which, okay, again, the FanDuel price isn't that appealing, but 4,300 on DK. I would project him for averaging about 25 in this matchup. I think Sans Portis, maybe you get a couple extra minutes. You get 32 out of here now. And in that game, he shot 2 for 7 when playing at center. That's not going to happen repeatedly. So a bit more of a cashy play, but a lot of love for Wendell Carter. Certainly, again, no issues with Jabari in any format. But again, anytime there's a guy I think is going to be popular and I can see not working out a couple of ways I'm sort of inclined to move away from, and I prefer that he's coming off the bench. It'll reduce his ownership, which makes him a better play, and it just makes him a better play. I'd project him for more points coming off the bench than starting. Beyond that, I think it's good news for all the other starting guys here. Chandler Hutchinson is not a refined player yet, hasn't put up any sort of reasonable fantasy point per game in any of his appearances on the court yet. He's in play in tournaments just because he's a guy who's starting. He's $3,500. The ownership will be fairly low still. You're going to be in single digits. But I'd be more inclined to play, $4,600 Cameron Payne or under $8,000 still Zach LaVine, who is performing a little over what we expect, but still is banging out 30 real points and 40-something fantasy points every day. Certainly no reason you can't go back there. And I think, losing Portis and bringing in Hutch there is going to increase his upside and his exposure. You can still tournament punt Justin Holiday. So, I'm fine with playing basically all the starters. Jabari off the bench. If Cristiano Felicio is like 3,000, he's playable. His minutes are going to come up. He's going to play 20 minutes off the bench now. If I was building 150, he'd be in there somewhere. And even Antonio Blakeney only saw, I want to say, 9 or 10 minutes the last time these two teams played. That number could certainly come up, and he could pick up a pile of usage.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. Actually, I do have a Felicio lineup out of my lineups. I had a little too much in the beginning, but then that was assuming Jabari was going to start because I thought that starting group with Jabari would have just been a disaster. The one that Felicio in that second unit, I think he's been good when he's like a main offensive option.
Yeah, I'm not shocked if you get like 65 out of Kemba here. This is just such a bad defensive team now. Like, I could spend 20 minutes explaining all the ways statistically and empirically and visually this is just a dreadful defensive team, but it's not good. Like, I'm a little more like there's so many good wing plays between you can play Von Led Ford many places and Dotson and Danny Green, and so I really look at 5.6K for Batum and think, wow, it's kind of expensive relative to these other guys, but man, is it a pretty good matchup at this point. Like, they should really put the hammer down at home against, like, I think they score 130 points tonight. I don't know what the over-under in that game is, but
they have the Hornets, I think, are 118, or at least the last that I saw.
Yeah,
their total.
That sounds about right. What are they, 10-point favorites?
Yep, on the nose. I agree. I was all over Kemba the other day, and I think this could be a good spot for him to get back on track. Ricky in the YouTube chat actually pointing out some interesting things about the way they defended Kemba. I think, you give them, having seen that now, I think Kemba will be able to handle it better. But I agree. He looked kind of lost last time, and I don't think that's how he's going to play all year. So.
Yeah, 5 for 14 is well fewer shots and well fewer makes than he had seen all year, but they just don't have the personnel, I don't think, to stop him, and now they're on the road and just I'll vote more likely the bounce back than what we're suggesting.
I agree. Let's talk Golden State, New York. We got Steph Curry coming into the Garden after really just disappointing in his only Garden game last year, which kind of gives me a little interest in Curry. On the other side of New York, obviously, we talked about that weird starting lineup up front, but what are you doing in this game, Eddie?
Yeah, so New York obviously is I'm trying to think if there's anyone on this team I think you can play Vonleh in cash. He's a very consistent guy, generally get you a double-double if he gets 20 minutes, sometimes get you a double-double if he gets 13, 16, 17 minutes. Now, there's still the uncertainty of everyone on this team. Obviously, there's a massive uncertainty with the lineup. So I suppose Vonleh, the closest guy to cash. I guess Vonleh and Dotson will both be close. Vonleh a little safer for me just because of the back. I mean, Dotson has to find a way to score to get his. Vonleh can just hang around on the basket and grab the ball when it bounces off when his team misses 100 times. So probably Vonleh I like a little more for cash. Vonleh and Dotson, the two plays I'm most excited about. Mitchell Robinson makes an excellent GPP play, but don't be shocked if he plays 13 minutes and scores 6 fantasy points. Like, that's a real possibility. Don't be surprised if there's foul troubles. Hardaway, I think, is an elite tournament play. I think I may have upgraded to an A before pimping the rankings out there. And for good reason. Again, literally, the 5 starting players are Ntilikina, Hardaway, Dotson, Vonleh, Robinson. Dotson is the only one with any semblance of an offensive game of those other 3 players. Like, Ntilikina is legit bad, and I don't think he's going to be able to do a whole hell of a lot against the Warriors, who are throwing out 3 elite defenders. So, I really wouldn't be surprised to see, Hardaway take more than 20 shots that would be described as step backs. Like, he would just take literally infinite shots. Ntilikina is cheap and starting and maybe gets 30 minutes. So, sure, he's in play in tournaments on a 7-game slate, but he's really a guy who has struggled to put up fantasy points in the past. And this is not a team that turns the ball over a ton. This is not a team that makes a lot of mistakes for him to capitalize on his multiple steal upside. Although I saw multiple people today write things like, Steph should have no trouble with Ntilikina. And I'm like, Ntilikina's, if I was to pick, 6 guys in the league to guard Steph, I think Ntilikina's on that list. Like, he's a very, very good, very long defender. So,
and a lot of energy too. He'll fight around the screens and stuff, which
exactly.
I mean, won't stop anybody, but
Yeah, I was surprised by how many people who's like, that's what he's good at. He does shit else, and that's the problem. He's a decent assist guy, but anyway. But yeah, that's it for the starters. And then it's like Mario Hezonja off the bench. Sure, I like him in tournaments. He's like 4,500, 4,400, I think, on the 2 sites. He's, he could easily play 30 minutes in this game through some combination of foul trouble and blowout. So sure, I like following that shot. Alonzo Trier, sure, get him in there. He's got, a real chance of doing the same thing. Enes Kanter is probably a bridge too far. Not impossible. You get, 2 quick fouls on Robinson, and instead of moving Vonleh to the 5, they bring in, him instead of Cornette. But I think Enes Kanter off the bench. I like to take guys who I think get shifted to the bench. But A, we're not even sure he's going to play off the bench. B, the Warriors has always been a pretty poor matchup for him anyway. So probably Enes Kanter a bridge too far for me. But even those bench guys make plenty of sense.
Yeah, I think Hezonja too put up 15 shots last game, which is pretty noteworthy. If you hit some of those, that could be worthwhile. Klay Thompson on the Golden State side too, I think looks pretty good at his price. He just hasn't hit his shot yet. He's shooting 39% from the field, 15% from 3 so far. Obviously, Klay will not shoot 15% all year. So I think him getting back to this could be the spot, and the Warriors running away seems pretty likely.
Yeah, no, it's and that's obviously when you look at the Warriors side, especially on DK, both Klay and Draymond are really cheap. They make some sense in tournaments. Spending up to the, $10,000 for Steph and Durant. If this game stays close, they should savage those prices, and you can certainly go there. But, on DK, where you're only at, 11.5 for the 2 monster guys who have a much more frequent, 75, 80 in the tank than they do, they're going to be really low owned for that reason. And so I'm just fine with them in tournaments, on any site. The ownership you're going to get on Kevin Durant is just way too low for Kevin Durant against the Knicks. Like, you're going to get Kevin Durant at 2.5% owned, or some absolutely farcically low number, just because of the fact that people are now gravitating more towards Steph because he's had the hot hand for the first week, even though I believe Durant had a 60-something point game either in the opener or the second game. So yeah, they're all tournament plays. There's really, even if you're playing the blowout, it's really tough to grab guys off the Warriors bench in that blowout. Like, they blew out the Wizards in the last game. Almost no one among the starters played much in the fourth, and still no one was really good off the bench in a game that had 266 points in regulation. Like, it just, they really tend to spread it out. When a game blows out, you end up with the bench guys all playing 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, and 17 minutes. So you just don't get, we'll let Kevon Looney get 28. It just doesn't happen. So tough for me to even look at the bench guys there in almost any circumstance. Like, if you told me you wanted to play Jordan Bell or Kevon Looney in a tournament, okay, but that's you're going well down the farm there, and with all the Knicks value and everything, I think you're just looking at the wrong side.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Let's talk about the Milwaukee-Minnesota games. A lot of people have questions about the Butler and Wiggins situations. Flag Hunter 21 in the premium Slack asking, can you go over what to do if and when Butler and or Wiggins is rolled out? So just tell us about that and then tell us about the game.
Yeah, all right, so let's go with they're both playing. They both make pretty interesting tournament plays, especially Jimmy Butler. Like, I've drawing on my experience, I've played basketball when starting kind of sick. Like, 40 times in my life probably. And I think maybe 2 of them after the game started did I feel anything bad. Like, you just get some adrenaline going, and I don't know if you've had the same experience, but just doesn't affect me whatsoever. Usually I feel just fine until the game's done, as long as you keep drinking something especially. So you're looking at getting Jimmy Butler 1% owned. Kind of excited about Jimmy Butler 1% owned. Beyond that, if one of them is out, basically Josh Okogie is the guy you want to add. If Butler is the one who is out, it's super special for Jeff Teague. If Wiggins is the one who's out, it's nice for Jeff Teague. Not thrilling, but nice. But he's like $5,700. Don't hate the matchup. So if either of them is out, Teague should get a rub. If they're both out, Karl Anthony Towns should be able to crush hopes and dreams. Like, he should run the offense. Like, they're going to put in Okogie and Anthony Tolliver, or move Rose to start and give minutes to Bates Diop, or I don't know exactly what they're going to do there. I don't think we'll have a lineup in time, but we might. That's an 8 p.m. game. But yeah, so if both are out, Teague, Towns, yummy, sexy. If 1 or 2 are out, Okogie becomes a strong value play and a strong pivot option off Damian Dotson on DK, where they're like the same price, and saves you $1,000 on FanDuel versus Dotson, is all the way up at $5,200, I think, there. If they're both out, Towns. If just Butler is out, still Towns. If just Wiggins is out, I mean, Towns still gets a boost, obviously, but not so much with how bad he's looked that we really want to go there. So Towns, I'm really hoping both are out, or at least Butler out. Teague, again, you want Butler out most, but either out is a boost. If they're both out, probably Anthony Tolliver, who I think is minimum price, would be the next guy in there.
I would say the Towns boo-boo lip doesn't go away unless Butler is out. So that's
yeah. He's got he's sad.
Somebody sleeps with your girlfriend. That'll do it. Allegedly, reportedly.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that is true or not. Like, I've literally seen zero.
It seems like a thing Jimmy Butler would do.
Yeah, he doesn't. He seems
got that vibe.
Predisposed. Yeah, he seems predisposed to believing in his own largesse. Put it that way.
Let's talk about the other side real fast. You mentioned Chris Middleton before. Giannis is a guy I like a lot. Bledsoe, too, I think has looked really good. And his shot hasn't fallen.
We've got Fantasy Labs just published updates on the Timberwolves. Okay. Now they're both game time decisions. There you go. So nothing changed.
So nothing's changed, but everything's changed.
Update. Nothing changed.
But what do you think about Milwaukee in the matchup? Giannis is going to be a tough choice, I think, over Davis. We have Giannis right now projected for much less ownership. But he's been looking really, really good. And I think this game has a much more better shot of staying close than the Nets New Orleans game.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I do think Brow is the slightly stronger choice for, pace reasons, a couple other things. But at the ownership, which I expect is only a little more than half, I think Giannis is a fine tournament play as well. FanDuel, you're also saving money, different position. DK, they're $100 from each other, so they basically come in on the same nugget, but not a ton necessarily to add here. The matchups for Giannis sort of proportionately get better and worse in even amounts. What happens? So, like, if you take Butler out, well, the matchup gets better as they've removed one of the more competent defenders to handle him, but the odds of a blowout go up. And there's, cash, I'm a little more inclined to play Anthony Davis, but neither of them are bad plays in any format. I'm a big fan of playing, Chris Paul and one of them, or both of them, or something like that. As I am a pretty big Chris Paul fan tonight, which apparently is somehow a point of contention.
I fully agree with you. Let's talk about that game then. Clippers at Houston. Not a terribly high total on this one, but Chris Paul returning to the lineup after suspension. Some injuries on that side. Carmelo Anthony probably moving into the starting lineup. What do you think about both sides here? He is in
the starting lineup. That's confirmed. FYI, they're starting. Who would they thought would, which is Paul Gordon, Melo, Tucker, and Capella. Yeah. So. Look, I don't know. Some people build lineups using stats. Some people build lineups telling stories. Some people build lineups based on what's popular. But no matter how you build lineups, you probably want to play Chris Paul tonight. Like, he has all the motivations. Like, he's playing the Clippers, so revenge. He's well rested. He just took a break. Due to his boating accident, and when James Harden isn't there, I wrote down all the statistics earlier again today, but he just goes ape shit, which isn't surprising. He's a little bit older, but he's an incredibly quality basketball player. He's still for one game, one of the top couple point guards in this league. So, yeah, Chris Paul, really hard to screw this up too badly. Like, I was reading a tweet 30 seconds ago where someone was like, I really don't think Chris Paul gets much more than 45. I'm not crying in my soup if Chris Paul gets 45. Like, you're not thrilled with it. You want 67, but 45 is like, all right, life will go on. Like, I'm if that's what you're telling me the realistic floor is here, okay. He's been fairly good against Beverly in the past, but the matchup there, I guess, is a little bit of a concern. Also, the fun thing with Beverly is they've managed to play each other as the Clippers and the Rockets, and then also as the Rockets and the Clippers. They managed to sort of switch teams and go back.
That is a fun fact.
Yeah, that's fun. You don't get that a lot. But yeah, Chris Paul, I like. Eric Gordon, I'm annoyed that they raised his price before he had time to go off, but he should still go off. He's going to play about 40 minutes, take about 20 shots, take about 10 3-pointers. The focus of the defense should be mostly Chris Paul, so you have potential for a really stupid game out of Eric Gordon here, and he's going to be like 12% owned again, and that's going to be way too low. And maybe he shoots 20% from the field again and 8% from three, but I'm thinking it probably gets a little better here, and he's just going to drive and active, and hard not to really enjoy some exposure to him. Carmelo, DK, you can put him in absolutely anything you want. I would probably be more inclined to play PJ Tucker for the money and the ownership. Melo is going to be more popular. 4,900, big psychological 99-cent price pointing point and everything. But certainly nothing wrong with playing Melo there. Melo's fine in tournaments on FanDuel. People have asked me about. There is enough of a ceiling there, in a game where they're just going to basically run out 7 guys. Great spot for Capella. Has been good in this matchup previously. Was good in this matchup again. These two teams also just played not that long ago. Basically similar lineups. Ennis was in. Harden was in then. Paul was out. So, yeah, like Tucker, like Melo, like Gordon, like Capella, like Paul, like Melo. Don't hate Michael Carter-Williams. Still very much in play in tournaments. And certainly don't hate Gerald Green at the price he runs out there. So, yeah. I would probably run Michael Carter-Williams over Gerald Green, which apparently is the unpopular opinion today, but I'm happy with that.
Gerald Green is going to lose his role to Carmelo. I don't know why people are all over Gerald Green today.
Well, Gerald Green is not coming off the bench at least. So, Melo isn't the bench gunner and Gordon isn't the bench gunner. But, again, they're all going to play...
Gordon should be staggered, though.
Right.
Like, he should be coming... Yeah.
And they're all going to play infinite minutes is the thing. Like, you're going to get 20, 25, 28 minutes out of Carter-Williams and Green. But, yeah, Paul and Gordon and Melo are going to jack up plenty of shots. So, where you're telling me I now have Gerald Green who just scores doing that, like, you actually have Michael Carter-Williams who frequently actually does pick up peripherals. He was Rookie of the Year, and a lot of that was just based on the fact that he also averaged, a half dozen assists and rebounds and grabbed a steal and a block. And, people have lamented that, Michael Carter-Williams just sort of stands there, and it's like, well, Gerald Green literally does almost nothing but shoot. Like, the ball bounced to him once in a while, and he'll pick up a rebound or two. But I would rather play MCW tonight over Gerald Green, which apparently is a hot take.
Interesting. Yeah, I think playing MCW in general is the hot take in DFS right now, but that's fair. One question about the other side from California. Cool. Actually, 2 cash questions here from guys in the premium Slack. Sure. Is Gallo a better play at 6,900 on FanDuel than Parker at 7,000 right now?
Yes.
And what do you think about Chris?
Sentence. I would project Gallo for more fantasy points here and like a third of the ownership. So yes. Plus, it's nice to run somebody back with hopefully your Houston ownership. So yes. I would much rather play Danny G than Jabari in this spot. I mean, he's only going to outscore Jabari, I think, like 55% of the time, 60% of the time. But I feel pretty strong that saving that $100 is a better play.
And can you talk about John Wall versus Chris Paul in cash, given that we don't have any Beal news yet?
Yeah, Chris Paul's the better cash play, period. Yeah, Chris Paul's the better cash play. That was easy. Chris Paul just has like all this guaranteed usage in time. Wall has potential blowout, and maybe Bradley Beal does play, and like there's just much less uncertainty in Chris Paul's situation. Like John Wall can, that game can just blow the hell out is one of many ways that can be less certain. That's a little less likely in the Houston game, which is a much smaller line. I imagine the Wizards are favored by, I don't know, but Beal News might move it a bit, but I bet the Houston line's still like 3 or 4 points. At that point, so yeah, Chris Paul is just the better cash play.
And then let's talk about real fast about the revenge game narratives on the Clippers side. You have Patrick Beverley in his first game against Houston after being traded. Montrezl Harrell going against Houston. He had a big game against them last year. Does that give you any extra interest in those guys, or I guess how do you feel about them in general?
Yeah, I like a lot of guys on this team. If for no other reason than you're probably playing a fair amount of Houston. I like running it back. At their price points today, I probably like Tobias Harris a little more than Gallinari, even though Gallinari outscored Harris the last time. That's a pretty small sample. Someone said to me I wouldn't worry about that. Don't think I really want to play Avery Bradley. Chris Paul has to deal with Patrick Beverley, but Patrick Beverley has to deal with Chris Paul as well, so not necessarily the spot. I'm going back to the well there. Don't play Marcin Gortat. Off the bench, I have a fair amount of appeal for 3 guys. I like Montrezl Harrell a lot, especially DK, where he's just 4,600. Very good spot for him that plays into his strengths. Don't play Boban. Boban's going to play 3, 5, 7 minutes. But I also like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Lou Williams at their prices. Look, Lou Williams was getting 30, 32 minutes last year and taking a million shots. Now that they have Gallinari and Harris in there, they're going to do a lot of the heavy eating on offense. So his usage is going to come down, his minutes are going to come down. That being said, he's now 5'1" and 5'3". He's going to play his 24, 26 minutes off the bench. We're actually at the spot where he could now pick up some sort of tournament upside game. So I like Lou Williams. I like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's carved out his 24 or 26 minutes in there. So those guys, all tournament plays for me. But certainly those 3 clips off the bench I have some interest in too.
Yeah, Lou Williams is a guy I've been playing the last couple of times. His price is just so low. The thing that sucks for him is he's not getting that same assist appeal as he's had in previous years, I think, with Shea in there in that second unit. And that kind of kills it a little bit. But at his price, though, I mean, he could put up 30 points in any given night. And I think, it does make sense, this Houston matchup. Houston's also been very bad defensively this year. I think that's something. They lost a lot of guys, obviously, but they're much worse in terms of efficiency defensively this year.
Yeah.
Let's talk Dallas-Toronto. Dallas obviously has been hot to start the year, but haven't played anybody good. Toronto, very good defensively. This one looks like it should be a blowout. What do you think, Eddie?
Yeah, that would be what both I and you and Vegas think is most likely to happen in this game. I think I saw him favored by like 11 when I was looking earlier today. It's hard to like anyone on Dallas for 5 or 6 reasons, but the big 2 are, 1, Harrison Barnes is going to come back and he's going to play, I'll say, 25 minutes, and he's going to take, I'll say, 14 shots, and so that pulls some of everyone's usage. And then they're in one of the worst matchups you can get in Toronto. So for both those reasons, you gotta really want it. If you made me play somebody on Dallas, it's probably Luka Doncic, just because he's got all kinds of upside and actually gets rebounds and can do other things, but don't really want to. You could certainly play DeAndre Jordan, but again, I'd rather look across the ball and play Jonas Valanciunas.
Barea against that Skeleton Crew second unit interests me a little bit.
I guess, but the Skeleton Crew second unit is going to have a lot more of the first unit in it. There's no one to roll out there at the point, so I think you just end up picking up a pile of extra minutes from these guys. I guess you'd get more CJ Miles and Norman's going to get more time, but I can see it. Also, the thing is, I think he may still be questionable. JJ Barea, that is.
Yeah, I think he's questionable, but I think they said he was going to play or likely to play. But,
okay, I haven't seen an update. Last I knew, I could have missed it, but he's got a hammy in the whole thing, and plus they're going to get their ass kicked, so I don't think they want to necessarily run him out there. So,
fair.
Not a ton of interest in Dallas for that reason. Again, Toronto, lots of interest in lots of guys. Love Valanciunas, like Ibaka a lot. Like Danny Green, again, much more on his DK price, but like Danny Green, like Kyle Lowry now, where he's going to pick up a couple extra minutes. Kawhi Leonard is going to go forgotten the same way that, Kevin Durant is going to go forgotten. So, big fan of most of the guys in Toronto.
Let's talk. Let's see. We've got a couple games left to run through. Let's go to Brooklyn, New Orleans. Obviously, a very fast-paced game expected here. Mm-hmm. Brooklyn playing at a very slow pace so far this year. New Orleans playing at one of the faster paces in the league. Also, New Orleans has been surprisingly good defensively despite the pace they're giving up. But what do you think about this matchup, Eddie?
Yeah, it's really hard to look at anyone on Brooklyn for a couple reasons. There's some strong tournament plays there. I like Jared Allen much more against more sedentary centers. The more I watch about him, he does better when he doesn't have to run around and chase somebody, when he doesn't have to fly around to the 3-point line. Like he's got 4 games this year. He played, his only bad game was against the Pacers, because he's running around chasing Miles Turner for a fair bit of that game, and was by far his worst game. The other 3 games were against Enes Kanter, Tristan Thompson, and Andre Drummond. So he really accrues points when he gets to hang around by the rim. He loses minutes and usage and production when he has to run around and chase somebody, and you have to run around and chase Anthony Davis. So I don't want to play Jared Allen today. Rondé's back from injury, but only got 21 minutes. His best thing he's doing is sort of screwing up everyone else's minutes. I don't think it's a day you have to go to a sort of priced up Joe Harris, but I can see playing Joe Harris in a tournament at least. This is certainly potentially a bombs away spot for him. You can always play LeVert or D'Angelo Russell in tournaments, and there's the pace in the matchup here. So LeVert tournaments, no problem. DK is down to 6,300. I don't mind that. Joe Harris is actually well cheaper on FanDuel. He's 44. I'd go with Joey there in theory in a tournament, and D'Angelo is 62 on DK. You could do that as well. So a couple tournament plays, but not a lot of love for the Nets. Let's see. For the Pels, both Drew and Elfrid are still too cheap on DK, where they're 69 and 67, which is nice, and 67 for those 2 guys starting out there at their DK prices. Mirotic is only 100 more on FanDuel, and again, is small forward eligible. That's pretty nice. Brow, obviously, I think we've handled quite a bit. Randall in tournaments, especially at DK, where he's priced a little better at 6.3. Don't think I'm in like a Darius Miller. I don't think you really need to eat one more, although he's not crazy in a tournament in this matchup. But again, very possible blowout-y spot here, but there's not a lot of guys in a lot of places you could play Pelicans that wouldn't be good. Again, I slightly prefer Brow to Giannis. Though in tournaments, I might play Giannis if I was building just one lineup for what I perceive to be the ownership difference. It obviously depends site by site. But yeah, I like having a piece or 2 of this game. I wouldn't want to overstack it because it staying close seems a little bit unlikely. But I can see running, 2 Pelicans and, I don't know, I guess Joe Harris and D'Angelo Russell would be sort of the mini stack I would make.
And just like one word, not because you mentioned Joe Harris, but just one word warning because it jumped out to me with Harris. Harris has been shooting the lights out in a way which is completely unsustainable. Shooting 55% from the floor, 59% from 3.
Yep.
I like Joe Harris, but that will not continue. And I think once that doesn't continue, I think you'll see Hollis Jefferson get back some of those minutes. But
it's he very possibly will play more tonight. They've always played Harris more minutes than they have to, and I still think he's getting enough time. And again, FanDuel where he's 44, I can see running that out just in tournaments. But
yeah. Joe Harris very much like a coach's son kind of player. I could see why he would get more run.
Yep. I'm got all
not just because he's white and shoot threes, but
I've got all
I've
got all my Twitter alerts up, so I'm trying to hopefully get some news.
I guess some news, a game that we need some news on, the last one that we have to cover before we take everybody's questions. The Wizards at Sacramento. Sacramento again playing at a crazy pace. The Wizards also playing at a pretty crazy pace. Yeah. This is their 3rd straight road game on the West Coast. Bradley Beal questionable with the sternum injury. Mahinmi also questionable. Dwight Howard out. What are we doing in this one?
Yeah, I think this game will generally go a little under-owned. Just because of the uncertainty. So I like John Wall a lot as a play wherever you want to play him. I can't take him in cash over Chris Paul, but I think he's a fine pivot in tournaments, especially if Beal is out and if this game stays close. You can get, this is one of those, 26 point, 16 assist, 4 steal, 5 rebound. Like you can get a monster out of John Wall here very easily, especially at DraftKings 8,500 is just too cheap. If you find out Beal is in play in time, big fan of putting him in or putting Jimmy Butler in if you have the ability to make those changes in time. Otto Porter will go under-owned for the potential upside he carries, especially with Beal potentially being out. And again, if this game stays close. Markieff got fewer minutes last time than I would like to see, but priced very well, especially on FanDuel where he's only 5,500. Big fan of Markieff Morris in tournaments tonight. And then past that, probably slightly prefer at price Jeff Green to Kelly Oubre off the bench. I would then play Austin Rivers, and he's the guy who I think probably gets the start if Beal is out. I don't think I'm playing Satoransky still. Someone asked.
All right. Let's go through all the questions. Again, Premium Slack gets first priority, and if you're not a premium member of Awesemo.com, join us now. Promo code live before lock will get you all the ownership projections, Awesemo's rankings, which won him a shit ton of money this week. So go check those things out. Yeah, he was on the show yesterday talking about his money wins and giving some strategy things. So if you want to go back and see the show with Eddie and Josh yesterday, go check that out. But yeah, promo code live before lock will get you free access and get access to the Slack. And again, the Slack is a very valuable resource besides just cutting the line for questions. Drum43 asking, would you go Siakam, Tucker, or Vonleh for a DK tournament?
My first inclination would be I like all three of those guys. So I just say straight up. But probably Tucker is my first inclination. But I really like all three of those players. They all will be lower owned than they should be. It all have a real upside. Dennis Smith Jr. is out tonight versus Toronto with a right ankle sprain. Okay.
Oh, he was scheduled to play like a second ago on a DK Live alert, I think.
Well, whoops.
There you go. Brea night, hey.
Yeah, I still don't know if I'm thinking they probably leave Dorian Finney-Smith in the starting lineup and move Harrison Barnes in, is my guess. I'm looking for a lineup. Honestly, more than anything else, it makes me like Doncic a little bit more and almost everyone else in the game a little bit less because they're really going to probably take a savage ass kicking at this point.
Do you think Doncic gets any Kawhi defense?
Do I think who gets any of the Kawhi defense? Doncic?
That Luka gets, yeah, the Doncic does.
Yes. I think it's extremely likely he does.
I'm curious. Okay, I thought so too, but I've seen a couple people suggesting that he would get like Danny Green or somebody else, and I think versus Kawhi, that could be a real humbling moment for Doncic tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, especially if he gets going, I mean, they will make that swap over, and it's not like Danny Green is bonus spot.
Yeah, sure.
Like, they don't really have a bad defender in that starting five outside of Jonas.
Let's go through the speed round. Some questions here. SJM on the premium Slack. You kind of answered this one before, but I'm sure a lot of people are curious now. Gerald Green or Michael Carter Williams tonight?
Okay, different repeated guy, just different. Okay, that's really weird. The guy for the Dallas Morning News just tweeted that Dennis Smith Jr. is good to go. So there are contrasting reports on
not ideal
from two reputable sources. One of the Dallas Morning News, the other one, who works for Fox Sports Dallas. So there are two beat writers with conflicting reports. Someone else just said out for three repeated people. I've got 2 outs and 1 in. I'm going to guess it's out, but again, just keep your eyes open. It does not change a ton, but I'll keep updating as it comes. Sorry, next question.
Thoughts on Willie Cauley-Stein for our boy Emac in the premium Slack?
Yeah, I think he's very, very good on DK. Now, again, the one thing everyone should realize about the Kings is there are like 3 players who are very good when they get their ass kicked, and 3 players who are very good when they do not get their ass kicked. If the game is going to be all right, DraftKings just gave us an out. All right, I've got like those are secondhand sources. From first sources, I've still got 2 outs and an in. From people on the ground. He's one of the guys you want the game to stay close. Nemanja Bjelica, you need the game to stay close. If the game stays close, he plays 30, 32 minutes, gets you 30, 32 fantasy points. If the game doesn't stay close, he plays 10, 12, 17, 21 minutes and gets you far, far less. De'Aaron Fox, game stays close, he plays 31, 32, 38, 40 minutes. Game turns into a blowout, he plays 21 minutes. You need that game to stay close. Willie Cauley-Stein is the third guy where you really want that game to stay close. There's some fluidity when you look at Buddy Hield and the other guys. When you look at the bench, Marvin Bagley, you want that game to blow the hell out. If you look at Marvin Bagley's game, first game of the season was close, he did shit. The second game was a blowout, he was a monster. Third game was close, he did shit. The fourth game was a blowout, he was a monster. So Frank Mason III, Yogi Ferrell, and Bagley are the guys I want that game to be a blowout. So if you're playing, say, John Wall, you want to play him alongside Willie Cauley-Stein or De'Aaron Fox or Nemanja Bjelica. You don't want to play John Wall and Marvin Bagley in the same lineup. Those are very negatively inverted quantities with what we've seen through 5 games of Dave Yeager's lineups. Caveat, Dave Yeager is a fuckstick and could do anything. So.
Would you go Payne and Lowry or Dotson and Wall for DK cash?
For cash? That's really close. Boy, I'll take Dotson and Wall, but that's very close. Neither of those is particularly better than the other.
Bielitsa or Bagley? I mean, I guess you just kind of answered that.
I mean, it totally depends on your correlation. Do you have no one else in the game? I'll take Bagley because I think it's more likely to get a blowout and the upside is higher between those two guys. If you have John Wall, then I'm going to play Nemanja Bjelica.
Combo with more raw fantasy points, Kemba Walker and Montrez or Chris Paul and Noah Vonleh?
The second one by 3.
Okay. That was good math right there. Harrell or Markieff on FanDuel for cash?
All right. It does seem like he's out. I've got a third reputed source saying he's out. Harrell or Markieff for cash? I would play Montrezl Harrell for cash.
Kemba or D'Angelo Russell for a FanDuel GPP?
That doesn't make sense to me, but Kemba's got to be $1,500 more.
Yeah, I would presume so. Kemba and Peyton or Lowry and Drew for DK?
I would play Kemba and Peyton in cash and probably go to Lowry and Drew in tournaments.
Giannis or Anthony Davis for DK cash?
I will play Anthony Davis.
Okogie or Dotson for DK GPP?
Yeah, in the absence of any news, I think you put Dotson in your lineup and swap to Okogie in the instance either of the guys in Minnesota are out. It's DraftKings, you can do that, so make sure you slot it right. Make sure you put the guys who are starting later games in the appropriate positions in your lineup, which is, again, basic strategy that people really manage to screw up constantly. But, yeah, I would start with, because neither of them, those are 7:30 and 8 games, I believe. So
Otto or Markieff Morris on DK?
Probably just outright Otto if they're that close. Markieff's better on FanDuel, sticky power forward position, 5,500. He's actually priced a little better there. But.
Would you go Jeff Green or Pascal Siakam on DK?
I'd probably go Siakam, but that's very close for me. But I'd probably go Siakam there.
Are you comfortable with Wendell Carter on FanDuel cash?
He's power forward, and he's like 5,300. Like, again, the guys we were just talking about, I think, let me make sure I'm getting that right before I land too heavily on it. He's 6,000. No, I do not want to spend $6,000 on Wendell Carter for cash on FanDuel. I would rather play Harrell at 54, Keefe at 55, Ibaka at 54, Tucker at 54. I would prefer all those plays to Carter at cash on FanDuel.
Kemba or Wall for a DK tourney?
Wall.
A lot of people asking about Jalen Brunson. One guy in particular on the premium Slack asking Jalen Brunson or Lorenzo Brown for a FanDuel GPP. Ooh. But also just what are your thoughts on Jalen in general?
Those are some spicy nuggets. Yeah, so with Dennis Smith Jr. out, apparently, he is the guy who should pick up some significantly more minutes. You probably get 22, 24 minutes out of Jalen Brunson. Matchup is dreadful, so I don't think I want to do it on DK. But FanDuel, where you now have a very reasonable literal minimum price punt on FanDuel, yeah, I think you can do it. And you hope for the massive blowout. He gets more time against the backups. Like, that is one of the few people who benefits from DSJ being out. So Brunson makes a lot of sense on FanDuel. DK, I'm disinclined, but certainly not out of play.
Vonleh or Ed Davis?
Vonleh. Like, people keep asking me about Ed Davis. Like, I think Ed Davis gets 18, 19, 20 minutes in this matchup. You're right, Jared is going to have trouble with it, but they'll just go small a little bit more, and Ed Davis is in a pretty bad spot. I think he gets 6 points and 12 rebounds in 19 minutes or something. He's fine, but I'll go the other way for any sort of upside.
For Austin in the YouTube chat, is Danny Green the best play at 4,200 on DK?
I probably slightly prefer Damian Dotson, but it would be one of those two. Yeah, probably slightly prefer. I probably would rank them Dotson, Green, Vonleh in general, but they're all close and they're all quite good. So if you're on Green, you're fine.
Who's your favorite center for a GPP on FanDuel other than Joe Val?
Oh, I was halfway through saying Joe Val. I I don't hate Towns at all at 8,500 with no news in the early lock. You're going to get him wicked cheap. So if that works, that's fine. I'd rather play him than Capella at 81, though there's nothing wrong with Capella at 81. Then many guys whose price is shit. Yeah, then a lot of poop as far as prices go. So J Val, but if I can't have him, probably Karl Anthony Towns.
Trevor T and Mr. 42 both asking on all the chats, lock in Barea now? Is Barea the play now? I guess just give people your Barea thoughts one more time.
You know, I am worried about them getting their ass kicked. You know, Brunson I think is a little more cute, but if you think Barea gets out there and plays more than like 20, 22 minutes, you know, I would not be surprised. I'm going to go ahead and say I think Jalen Brunson starts and that Barea still comes off the bench. So I don't think it changes Brea's position a lot. So no, I don't want to lock it in. I don't think you randomly get 31 minutes out of JJ Barea here. You can do it in a tournament, and that's what you're hoping for, but Barea isn't 100%. He's with a hammy, which is a real injury you tend to be cautious with because it can be aggravated. So no issue if you're playing JJ Barea in a tournament, but no, do not lock him in. I'm not over the moon with him.
Yeah, I agree. I think you talked me out of the Barea bit of craziness there. There's enough point guards and other cheap guys there where I don't think you need to go Barea tonight, and especially if people are going to flock there for ownership now. Yeah, no thanks. Walker or Levine for DK cash?
I'll take Kemba Walker.
Wesley Matthews, Ibaka, or Jabari Parker for DK GPP?
Ibaka than Parker for me. Parker's probably a little bit better, but he's going to be more popular. Ibaka's just been solid. Wesley Matthews, you know, nice to have DSJ up, but that hurts the efficiency of the entire lineup a little bit, and Harrison Barnes will take some of his shots, so I'll put Wes, who I like a lot, third on that list for the day.
All right, I think we covered all the main questions here. Do you want to do some daddy like? Close the week out with to see what daddy likes.
Sure.
I just want to know what daddy likes. That's what I want to know.
I'll show you the hard way.
It's gonna turn into one of those weird websites that pop up.
Come here, I'll get something straight between us. Sorry, that was a little disturbing. Let's see what we have here. Trying to reload this. Yeah, I just want to see. We only have one game, so Daddy will not like too much. We only have the 7 p.m. game. Is just the.
Daddy likes a lot of options in front of him, like a buffet.
Buffet.
I like a good buffet. Not a daddy like buffet, but just general buffet.
Exactly. What are you doing? You need an open face club, like a sandwich. Open face club sandwich. Number one owned, 34.2% Jabari Parker. See, that's, I was like, it's a lot of plays I like tonight. I'll look somewhere else. Kemba, 20%. Daddy like. Wendell Carter, 18.6%. Zach LaVine, 18%. Daddy like. Cameron Payne, 13.4%. Daddy like. Yeah, it was just these games versus other games is Cameron Payne in better matchups and 13% owned as opposed to 40. So that sounds weird whenever I really like a player who I really disliked a week ago, but it happens. Batum. Nicholas Batum, 12%. Daddy like. Justin Holiday, 8.5%. Jeremy Lamb, 4.42. Marvin Williams, 4.19. Chandler Hutchinson, 2.68. Cody Zeller, 1.9. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, 1.7. Daddy like. Cristiano Felicio, 1.3. Malik Monk, 1.02. Guillermo Hernan Gomez, 0.93. Ryan Archidiacono, struggled.
Ooh, nailed it. Daddy likes you nailing that name.
0.64%. Miles Bridges, 0.23. Tony Parker, 0.20. Robin Lopez, 0.18. Antonio Blakeney, 0.15. Is anybody going to play themselves? There may be no self-playing here, which Daddy doesn't like. Bacon, 0.07. Biombo, 0.05. Frank Kaminsky, 0.04. Shaq Harrison, 0.02. Devontae Graham, 0.01. Lauri Markkanen, 1/100%. Congratulations, you played yourself.
I come back. They need him more now than ever, I think.
Yeah, it was a vote of confidence, I think, is what happened there. They were like, oh.
It's an emotional support play. Oh, apparently Butler is in and Wiggins is out, according to the two chats. I don't know if there's an official confirmation on that.
I will head back to my tweet deck.
Wiggins
alerts.
out. 2 minutes after lock, Wiggins out. Don't Embiid, my status is saying.
Perfect timing. So that's, not the most massive of changes. I like Butler in tournaments a fair bit here. Like, You know, he's put up 55 a couple times this year in difficult spots, and the ownership is going to be meh. So, you know, I like some Buttles. Josh Okogie now makes it a absolutely fine pivot off of Damian Dotson or Noah Vonleh or any of those other $4,200 guys. I like him quite a bit. Yeah.
Okay, Butler's still questionable though. Okay, good. So
I'm sorry.
He's not in. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Can't trust the YouTube chat.
Wiggins out. I see Wiggo out. Still waiting.
Yeah, Wiggins is officially out. Butler is still questionable. So we're getting closer. Got half the problem solved.
Well, if he is in that, then if they're both out, then yeah, then definitely some Okogie, definitely some Teague, definitely some Towns. Yummy.
One last question for the YouTube chat, because this is in caps lock, so it seems really urgent. Barea or Dinwiddie? Help.
Barea. I'm not going to randomly run Dinwiddie out there. Like, if I have to... let's see. Warriors starters, exactly who we expected. No news there. Yeah, I'll stick with Barea if I have to play one of those two players. I don't want to play either of those two players, but I'll play Barea if I have to play one.
All right, there we go. So that's everything I think we need to know. Anything else you want to cover before we call it a quits on this business week of ours?
No, I'm apparently going to go solo tomorrow night. Daddy likes to go solo when he's talking about these young athletic men. Hey,
tomorrow a big slate.
You can take your shirt off if you want to, or just tie it in a knot around your waist. It's up to you. Sorry, we're good.
That's a creepily accurate impression of Herbert. I'll give you that.
You like popsicles? You better come on down to the cellar, because I got a whole freezer full of popsicles.
I enjoyed when he redeemed himself with that Nazi guy who was also trying to be Chris's friend.
My personal favorite was, excuse me, I'm looking for a used car that looks like an ice cream truck. You know, with colorful pictures of treats, and it plays a tune the children love. La da 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 da. Oh.
Wow, that was eerily accurate. You could have been playing that as a clip, and I would have been like, okay, it's from the show.
I aim to please.
I'm impressed. Well, there you go. Let's close it on that note. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you guys tuning in every day and being a part of this. Tomorrow, Eddie will be back. Before that, though, make sure to sign up for your free week of Awesemo.com. Promo code Live Before Lock will get you 1 week free of all the ownership projections, the premium Slack, which is really important for these shows, and Awesemo's articles, also Awesemo's rankings. Again, guys want a lot of money. You want his picks in addition to Eddie's stuff, Josh's projections, lots of great stuff on there. So go sign up now. Promo code Live Before Lock. And any parting words for the folks, Eddie?
No, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you again soon. Have a good night. Good luck.
All right, I'm ending the stream now.
Okay.
Right?
For real?
Almost.